Hey travelers, Chris here with another review. I'm really excited about this one. We're testing out another business class airline product, and today we're looking at Thai Airways A330. It's been quite some time since I last flew the Thai Air business class, over 10 years, 15 years, so I can't wait to see what it actually looks like nowadays. Now, of course, the A330 is not exactly their top product. You have the A380, A350, they have a big fleet, but nevertheless, let's see what we can expect. In fact, speaking of an older product, this specific plane is already 14 years old. It was delivered to Thai Airways in 2009. Now, before hopping on the airplane, I wanted to quickly go over to an ANA lounge. You can use those since this is a Starlines flight. Now, I've reviewed another ANA lounge, the big one basically at Haneda beforehand. You can see that on my channel. This one is a smaller sub lounge that you can find a little bit off the beaten path and the terminal. And while this is certainly also a little bit crowded, what's nice is that you have a little sushi counter, so that was quite unexpected to me. Anyways, let's hop onto the plane. The flight today is TG683 and it is taking us from Tokyo Haneda to Bangkok's BKK airport. And as we are boarding the plane, let's have a little bit of a look at how the seat configuration is on this airplane and how my seat here actually plays out. In fact, this specific plane comes with 31 business class seats in this 121, 122 configuration, and you can see that the rest of the plane is economy seats. And for this type of flight, if you want to have maximum privacy, I would recommend that you go with any of the A or maybe the J seats. The A seats on the left side give you a window seat and a lot of privacy towards the aisle, while on the right side of the plane, the J seats actually give you the throne seats, the coveted ones, which give you a lot of storage. Either way, I think those are the best seats here. So let's hop over to seat 12A. Let's grab ourselves a drink and get going. This is actually the Thai Air iced tea. It was delicious, a little bit on the sweet side, but of course that's normal. I also like that they give you an actual proper towel, hot towel to begin the flight with. This is something I see in a lot of airlines where they just give you a little bit of a paper towel, which I'm not a fan of. So with this seat, you see already it's quite a standard seat. You have a lot of purple, of course, this is their corporate color, and whether you like it or not, of course, that's a matter of taste. There's a decent amount of privacy, as you just saw in this shot, and also there's actually a surprising amount of legroom. Now, that's good and bad. I'm a fairly tall person at 6'3" or 190, and I couldn't even reach the ottoman or the padded area over at the end of my seat, so plenty of seat room, yes, but you don't really benefit from it necessarily. In fact, when you can see my seat neighbor here, this is the relaxed position for the legs, so you cannot really stretch them out properly. But anyway, small thing. Of course, you have the general controls of this seat, and boy, were there a lot of controls. And I don't mean this panel, this is pretty standard. There's also a small massage function, which I really like. I wish you had a better customized control of all the elements of the seat. You actually only have the 3 scenes, upright, relax, and sleep, that you can toggle. Behind that you have an international power plug, which is great, and also the plug for the headphones and also USB port. Then there's actually another set of buttons right next to your legs. They basically trigger the same 3 seats, and then there's another couple of buttons. I've not seen that before, but this is very interesting. Anyway, you definitely have all the controls you will need. In fact, for one of these sets, you can actually take this controller out on a cable, and I noticed on the back side, it's basically a gamepad, so you can play some games on the in-flight entertainment system. It also has this kind of capacitive mouse button that you can use to control the screen, but it was very fidgety and I didn't really end up using it, and I doubt that many people do that anyway. One quick side note about these buttons, especially next to your legs, those are capacitive buttons, meaning as soon as you touch them with any part of your skin, they get triggered, and it happened to me multiple times that I accidentally triggered these buttons and moved them to relax mode accidentally. So you're also getting these black slippers. I like the look of them, they were actually quite comfy, and I like that they're already at your seat when you're boarding. I think that's always the first thing to do, is to take your shoes off. Unfortunately, there's not really storage for your shoes, so that was a bit awkward. Speaking of storage, and I know I'm a sucker for storage, but you do have actually quite a lot of little pockets here and there, although they are fairly small. As mentioned, no shoe pocket, but at least you have this big closet space here, and you also have a little bit of a water bottle holder. So you can see how you can easily put at least the small things into this front pocket. And this side pocket here, actually, I really liked. They used it as a storage for the amenity kit and the headphones and the slippers, and we'll get a little bit into all of these items in a bit. But it's nice to have something that closes so you can feel more safe that your items are, you know, well stored and are not being tossed around during turbulences. In terms of privacy, as you can see here, it's good but not great. Basically, the cover of the seats are a bit lower than the head, so you can easily see everyone's head popping out there, but actually it's still quite decent, I thought, especially on the seats I mentioned that are closer to the window. You really won't feel too exposed. Unfortunately, on this plane you don't get the individual nozzles for climate control, so keep that in mind if you're very sensitive to that. As we were slowly starting to prepare for departure, the crew went around and actually asked for our food wishes. Now, actually that was quite surprisingly quick to me. I barely had time to actually even look at the menu, but fortunately they had this little iPad with pictures on there, so at least that helped. In regards to the food, here's a quick little selection. Pause the video if you like to get some more information there. One little side note actually on the seatbelt, because I found that quite irritating. Now you see you have this more car type seatbelt, which generally I think is probably safer, the 3-point seatbelt, than other normal seatbelts on planes. But to be honest, the position of the seatbelt was quite high up, and so it was continuously cutting a bit into my neck, and it was quite uncomfortable. But regardless, let's relax and actually prepare for takeoff. With us in the air, let's talk a little bit about the in-flight entertainment system. Now I have to say that the screen is actually quite big and solid. It looks very modern, and I was happy to see that it was a very responsive touchscreen. What was a bit odd was that they did not unlock the entertainment system until we were actually at flight altitude, which was kind of a strange decision. Anyway, you have around 100-120 movies. There are some modern ones around there, but overall I would say this is not the most impressive movie selection overall. It's actually the same for TV shows. You usually have a couple of episodes here and there. It feels a little bit kind of random at points, but just know that you have these options. Either way, I always recommend bringing your own iPad if you have that, as it's just a lot easier. The same can be said for the headphones, which were provided, and they have active noise cancellation. I believe this one is called AKG N60, and those are on-ear headphones, so they're not the most comfortable, especially if you wear them for a couple of hours. They're absolutely fine and the noise cancellation works pretty decently, but just if you're the type like me that feels a bit uncomfortable having something pressed against the ears for a long time, then just note this might happen to you as well. One small feature I like though is that there's a little bit of a hook where you can hang the headphones right next to your seat, so you always have them at hand. This is a neat little feature, and I would love to see more airlines actually integrating that. Around 45 minutes after takeoff, it was time for the first beverage round and some small snacks. These nuts you can see here had some little fruit pieces, like dried fruit pieces mixed into it, and it was actually quite delicious. Shortly afterwards then there was a small little appetizer being served out of these funky looking muffin or cupcake cases. I did like the presentation of it, but I have to say that it was actually quite delicious, so I'm not mad about that. One thing to highlight here is actually that the crew noticed that I was traveling with my fiance. We both had window seats, and they offered that we could take our meal together at some empty middle seats that were available, so I found that a very attentive and nice gesture. The table itself felt a little bit flimsy. You can see it shaking around here a little bit. It's also not the biggest and you cannot adjust it much, but it should still be decent if you want to get a little bit of work done. Soon after our first little appetizer they came and also put a nice tablecloth on there, which is a small detail which always I think makes everything look a lot nicer. And while actually our first appetizer came very quickly, I have to say that overall food service was very chaotic and it took forever for the food to come out. In fact, even before we got our sliced tuna as a second appetizer, my seat neighbor here actually had his main dish already and was almost finished. Now for my food choice, I decided to go with the green curry, something you can never go wrong, at least I thought so. Presentation wise, I understand it's quite difficult to make it look nice, but I think they could have done a little bit of a nicer job. It was also unfortunately not hot at all, it was barely even warm, so overall not the greatest experience. For comparison's sake, my fiance had the braised beef with roasted potatoes, and I think both the display and unfortunately also the temperature of the food was just as mediocre, so overall quite disappointing. Adding to the chaotic service was that while we got served butter, we actually did not receive any breads, which was strange because we saw some people on the plane receive it, but nevertheless we continued with a small dessert. Again, service-wise, a bit unfortunate that they did not clean the dishes. It felt very crowded at that point, but it was a tasty little side dish. Afterwards, there was a little cheese and grape dish. Again, you be the judge of the display. I would say it does not look very nice, but at least it's cheese, so at least it, tastes nice. However, still no bread was given, so just keep that in mind. You can use the cracker that's in the little box there. On the upside, the last dessert, this kind of chocolate pudding style dish, was quite delicious, so at least we finished on a good note. After the lunch, it was time to actually hit the hay. Well, not actually, but I wanted to try out how the sleeping comfort is for you guys for the review. Now, first couple of things, I really like that finally they gave us a bottle of water that you can see here, but I wish they had given that to us at the very beginning of the flight. Again, the side pocket next to the seat is fantastic. I really like that. And then it was time to try out the blanket. I have to say the blanket was actually super fluffy and comfortable. Usually the blankets on airplanes are fairly small, at least for me, but this one was huge and it took me like half an hour to even figure out because it was so huge it folded up, but that one is a big plus. Now let's talk sleeping comfort, and that's certainly something this hard product does not shine in. You can see here that actually the width of the seat for your shoulders is the space is very narrow, and so actually, at least for me, I couldn't properly keep my shoulders and arms in a comfortable position just because there was so little space and there was this hard armrest right next to me. Unfortunately also, there's just not a lot of sleeping positions that work well for this seat. I feel like I found the best comfort you get is if you actually are a side sleeper, then it's quite okay, even though unfortunately the mattress padding is not the biggest and there's no mattress toppers or anything that you see on other airlines or other airplanes. In regards to the privacy, just a quick show of how exposed you are to the hallway. I think it's actually quite alright, so privacy, at least on the window seat, I would not be too concerned with that. But since this was a day flight, at least this was not a big issue. I think barely anyone slept on this flight, so that was fine. And I decided to watch a little bit more of the movies and shows that they had. And here I have to say, for this relaxing position, it's again not great. Unfortunately, the screen does not tilt downwards, so the angle at which you look at the screen is a little bit strange. It's not very comfortable, and so there's a lot of glaring and you have to kind of keep your head in a weird position. On top of that, the armrests unfortunately don't move forwards when you move into a relaxing position, which means that you barely have any grip or hold for your arms to stay in a comfortable position, and that's unfortunately even on both sides of the seat, so finding a comfortable spot in this relaxed position was quite difficult, so a little bit of a letdown here. One thing that is surprising and in a positive way is that even on this 5.5-hour flight, Thai Air actually provides you with an amenity kit, which is something I have recently mentioned on my flights to Singapore and to Indonesia from Tokyo that were missing on Singapore Airlines and ANA, so it's great to see that this is being provided. Maybe that's just me, but I really like to collect these amenity kits. It's always a nice reminder of the flight, so I really like what they've been doing here. Now, I'm not familiar with this brand here. I hope it's something local, I hope it's a Thai product. And in regards to what you can find inside, it's quite standard products. You get your socks, your sleeping mask, you get a moisturizer cream and a little shoehorn. So nothing special, but I like that still they gave that to every passenger. Finally, as we were getting closer to Thailand, I tried out the ramen, which was kind of like a second serving. Unfortunately, there's no a la carte ordering as there is in some, or actually most business classes, I feel like. However, it was actually nice to have this noodle soup, and I always feel like noodle soups are quite easy to get right. Unfortunately, this one was quite mushy, but at least I appreciate the effort to serve a second meal on this short flight. And as we were slowly approaching Bangkok, it gave me time to structure my thoughts a little bit about what this product is like. Overall, I have to say, and I cannot stress enough that this is about the Thai Air A330 plane. There are plenty of other airplanes within Thai Air's fleet that are probably a very different experience indeed. But for the A330 that I was flying today, I have to say it was a more than average product. The food overall was okay, but the chaos in the service was not great. Additionally, I noticed that all the used dishes always stayed at your seat for way too long, and there were multiple cabin crew walking past your seat multiple times and they wouldn't take off the dishes. So that's not fantastic. The in-flight entertainment is fine. You won't see something incredibly vast as you find on Emirates, but overall I think that's the most decent point, especially because the screen was quite big. The seat itself then, when it comes to sleeping, I can definitely see how you can spend a couple of hours sleeping on this seat, but just mind that while it's very long, it is very narrow, so if you're a little bit on the wider side, you might struggle on that one. There's also no mattress topper, but at least the blanket is very comfy. Lastly, I must say that I believe when you look at cash rates for this route between Tokyo and Bangkok, you notice that these flights are not crazy expensive on business class, so at least with that in mind you get a little bit of a better value out of it. Nevertheless, I cannot really recommend flying with Thai Air on the Airbus A330. I think there are better options, especially when you're booking with points. If you're a little bit more flexible, definitely try to go with maybe the Japanese carriers instead, or at least try to catch a different airplane model. Side note here though that in my booking it said A350 on both Thai Airways and all the flight trackers I was looking up before the flight, so I fully expected the A350 to come up. But as we all know, planes are getting swapped out last minute, so you never can really be sure of what you're getting. So that's it from my side, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I think if you've flown Thai Air before, especially on this specific airplane, let me know in the comments down below what your experiences were. If they were completely different than mine, I think it's always interesting to hear. And anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next one, so cheers.